I think really Keir Starmer has set up his successor to fail. He's going to have to start making some really difficult decisions, and his popularity will wane very quickly as a result of this.
Now, let us talk about the defence plan, the defence spending and investment plan. We heard it yesterday from the Prime Minister, the Chancellor alongside him, the new Defence Secretary, Dan Jarvis, alongside all of those. A lot of criticism of this plan. Defence experts, former military high-level commanders are saying just not enough. It's not urgent enough. And it turns out that there's going to have to be another go at this. Next year, there's a spending review where we're now promised another load of money for defence. It's not even half done, this job. But the controversy earlier on was when it turned out that Keir Starmer, in leaving behind the plan that he did yesterday, didn't seem to mention to Andy Burnham, the next Prime Minister, that there was £5 billion still to be found. Well, I spoke to earlier on the defence editor of the Times, Larissa Brown. What were her thoughts on, who she thought should be, first of all, the next Defence Secretary?
Jarvis has backed Burnham in the past. They obviously know each other well. I think I'd be quite surprised if Andy Burnham got rid of him, given he's only been in the job a few weeks. But obviously there are other potential contenders. I'm sure John Healey, the former Defence Secretary, would love to come back. And
I wonder if they'd love to see him back at the MOD.
I mean, he fought hard
popular,
for... He was, and he fought hard for defence. I think there's also Al Carnes, the former Armed Forces Minister. He's obviously really wants to get his hands on the job, so he'll be competing for it too.
Right. Now, what about this gap, this £5 billion gap within a gap that's going to have to be found by Andy Burnham when he comes into office? Keir Starmer didn't just leave a gap, he told him how to fill it. He told him in the first budget, just take it away from what they call the headroom, the wriggle room in the Treasury coffers. Now, that's not really necessarily what you want to be told when you're coming into office, what should be in your next budget, the one after that and the one after that, and what you should be spending those extra, £4 to £5 billion on. I also spoke to the Times business columnist Ian King, and he looked at the options on the table for the Treasury to bridge defence spending gaps.
If you really believe that the civil service headcount is going to be cut by 10%, I mean, that looks incredibly optimistic. And don't forget, under the previous settlement set out by Rachel Reeves as Chancellor, all of the spending cuts were already back-end loaded in this Parliament. So spending departments are already facing some pretty tight financial settlements as we approach the next general election. I mean, I think welfare is probably going to have to bear the brunt of this in some ways. We've obviously got the review going on by Stephen Timms, the former Treasury Minister, into personal independence payments. Obviously, the Starmer government had a go at that last year and was forced to climb down by its own backbenchers. But ultimately, it's those kind of measures that are going to have to be looked at again.
So it's not going to be easy to find the money that now is commonly accepted the Defence Department still needs, despite the plan that was set out yesterday. And what about Burnham then, Sam? What about Burnham, Mikey? Has he got a right to feel aggrieved? He wasn't told about this £4 to £5 billion that he's got to find when he was being briefed about yesterday's plan. Found out afterwards. I've been sort of seeing reports that he's very angry and his team are very angry. Is that what you're picking up?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a sort of trick that you normally see an outgoing government inflict on the incoming government.
It was what we saw, an outgoing government inflict.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, that's it. But it's usually of the opposite colour, you know. So it's. I mean, it is quite a sneaky manoeuvre. I mean, you can't blame Keir Starmer on a personal level for doing it. But I think, really, if you're thinking about the good of the country here, you know, we've got 28 billion was the figure that was needed to really sort out the defence problem. We've barely got half of it funded. And actually, when you look into the 10 billion that Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer did manage to find, again, a lot of it is smoke and mirrors, isn't it? You know, as we just heard, the 10% from cutting the civil service just grows year on year, so that good luck with trying to cut that. Even when you go into the 5 billion, you're looking at headroom. Well, headroom's a kind of notional thing. It can disappear at the drop of a hat. You know, Trump suddenly starts firing rockets again in the middle of the night and we're all in a different position. That headroom goes. So I think really Keir Starmer has set up his successor to fail. He's going to have to start making some really difficult decisions, and his popularity will wane very quickly as a result of this.
Would you go that far, Mikey, setting up Burnham to fail?
I think it was perhaps not the most collegiate thing for two members of the same party to do. I think it's perhaps a little uncouth, but...
Do you think there was an element of malice there then?
I have absolutely no idea. It's
Very diplomatic, Mikey.
It's entirely possible. I mean, you're always told, between cock-up and conspiracy, you don't choose the conspiracy first. So I don't know is my answer to that. On the matter of whether it was sort of right or wrong for Keir Starmer to leave it sort of slightly fuzzily funded, that's not unusual. It's not unusual for a Prime Minister to leave particularly defence spending commitments open without having them specifically funded, and that quite often happens that those commitments are passed on unfunded to their successor. That's not unusual at all, and I think he's done probably the best job he could have done in sort of going down a middle ground between being completely prescriptive on how Andy Burnham had to pay for this and not saying anything at all. That's what headroom's good for. You can fix this with headroom. But if things are saying you can fill this gap with headroom, we have headroom, you can use that headroom, leaves Andy Burnham the option to rethink that next year. It's it's £1 billion over 4 years.
We've had now two question times and at least one speech where Keir Starmer was telling us and presenting himself as the outgoing Prime Minister who, give him his due, he argued about himself, I took tough decisions. This was a tough decision not taken. This was a tough decision ducked.
It was, but it was also a tough decision not taken for the previous 14 years. This is a position he was... I mean, I don't think had he, designed his perfect premiership, he would have designed a hollowed-out armed forces. This is a position he found himself in when he got to number 10, and it's not an ideal solution, but an ideal solution would have been spending more money a decade ago.
Sam?
I think spending more money over the last probably 3 decades, really. Yeah, I mean, this is governments of both sides for a long, long time, but that is almost inevitable, really, when we've had peace for such a long time. Then clearly governments are going to prioritise other things. War seems a long way off, doesn't it? In times of peace. But as to where we are now, I think... OK, you could look at this as a party political thing. Ben Wallace, the former Defence Secretary today, came out with this great line, you can't fight a war with a press release. Absolutely true, and he's clearly furious about it. But this is not party political. This is people on the Labour benches who are upset about this. Clearly John Healey quit because of the lack of funding and commitment. This was only a fraction more than they settled with him. And Tan Desi, the Labour chair, the Defence Select Committee, he's also unhappy with all this. This is not a Tory Labour fight. This is people who are experts in this area saying we have to sort this out. And we need to start listening to them. Yeah.
Well, it's taken just over a year to get to where we got to yesterday. Now there's a spending review coming up next year. It's going to be tougher than this process because already we've seen the Treasury knock chunks off the capital budgets of departments around Whitehall. Everyone's been told to be more efficient. They've scraped the barrel now, and the next one's going to be harder. It's going to be looking for more money. They better start the next round of wrangling yesterday.
Well, I go back to where I started with my thought for the day and the tax hiking instincts of Labour. They have some tough choices. Are they going to cut spending or are they going to put up taxes? And I fear I know the answer.